What is the most current scientific literature showing on bulking? Hey, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. This is a relevant topic because I've oftentimes historically recommended bulks and cuts. And I think we need to be clear here that, again, when I make this statement, I am not talking about contest ripped bodybuilders. We need to be absolutely clear that you cannot maintain that level of body fat. I'm talking about people who are at reasonably lean, healthy body fats when it comes to the whole idea of bulking and cutting, that actually recomposition is pretty much possible. But let's talk about what some of the studies are showing. And I don't know if I'll remember to link the study by the time I get this video. People forget I make these videos 5 or 6 weeks before they come up. But I was just reading a really recent study looking at bulking, and it's kind of been my observations as a coach. I have people bulk really slow, and I get people who are like, that's so slow that it's barely any gains. And I'm like, but if you're eating enough protein and you are seeing any scale weight, then it is a bulk and it does count. So when I say stuff like gain a pound a month, so for my people who don't use freedom units, that's like 400 grams a month. And people are like, that's ridiculously slow. I'm like, yeah, but it'll be mostly lean, if not all lean. Okay. And yes, it is possible. And as you get more advanced and you're not using stuff, you're natural, it doesn't make sense to do really hard bulks. I get it maybe one time early on when you're a novice and you cut down and then lean bulk from there. But beyond that, because again, obviously you can't get jacked at 150 pounds. It's not going to happen unless you're really short. So you're going to eventually have to gain weight. But there's also a point where we can recomp. If you're 15, 16% body fat, you can recomp. But let's come over and talk about what the study showed. It was having people do 3%, like they estimated their TDE and had them calculate a 3% surplus and slowly, and I'm talking gain weight at a snail's pace versus people at a 10%. And I've told people before a 10% surplus isn't an aggressive bulk, right? That's aggressive. Because if your maintenance calories is 3,500, see where I'm going with that? That's 350 extra calories. I mean, in theory, that's a pound every 10 days. That's over 2 pounds a month. Okay, so for most people who are lifting and active, a 10% surplus is at least 2 pounds, if not 3 a month. That's an extremely aggressive bulk. So when I see the 10%, people say, "Oh, that's small." No, that's not. That's a pretty big bulking number. It really is. Okay, they compared them, and who do you think gained more muscle? 3% versus a 10% surplus when they estimated it, with a nice, high, reasonable protein levels optimized for muscle growth and all that. They gained about the same amount of muscle. Okay, what? Because these were already trained lifters. They weren't novices. They weren't noobs anymore. This is why I have my lifters only gain about a pound a month. They're no longer a novice. Like, dude, a pound a month is fine. And so what? You get a month where you don't actually hit the full pound. But you were at least at maintenance. Your protein was high and you were training hard. What happens? You still gained muscle. And as long as you gained muscle, that's all we care about. It doesn't matter. It almost doesn't matter if it's slow or not, because it's going to be slow anyways. But when it came to this study, the only difference was the amount of fat gained. In other words, the 10% surplus gained significantly more body fat. And I mean significantly more, way more. Whereas in the 3% surplus was pretty much like lean gains. Okay, but we need to be clear, they were still gaining a little bit of weight. But when they went from a 3%, and I get that, guys, that's like one bite of an apple. That's like half a slice of bread. But that's why I tell people you can bulk excessively slow. Excessively slow. And you'll gain muscle. The lifts won't go up as fast because you're not gaining all that water and scale weight. And people forget that. Body fat will make you stronger. Okay? You will get stronger from body fat. It will change your leverages. I mean, if you're gaining body fat, your bench goes up real fast usually. Because the leverages change, the intramuscular leverages change. Squish against your body changes. So some of your big lifts will go up faster, but it's because you're gaining body fat in that case. Squat and bench particularly, deadlifts not so much. So what does this tell us? That really bulking beyond a very slow amount, bulking beyond what is necessary to gain the amount of muscle you think you're going to gain isn't necessary. And I tell that to even intermediates, you're only going to gain maybe a pound of muscle a month. Advanced, forget that. So if you're only gaining a pound or less, you know that it's all lean. But again, people get impatient and they're like, but that'd take forever. I'm like, it's going to take forever anyways, because you're going to gain more fat for arguably no more muscle gain, or minimal amounts, a little more, but then the cutting time. When you cut, we lose muscle. See where I'm going with that? So it makes sense to make very slow gains, and kind of studies like this kind of confirm it, especially when it's like they didn't gain really any more muscle at all from the bigger surplus. All of the extra gains were body fat. So what is our take home here? How should we be viewing this? This is why I tell people more and more, we can focus a lot more on recomposition and very slow weight gain. Protein overfeed, that's another thing I've told people. If you really heavily protein overfeed, yes, I know it's more expensive. Yes, I know it's a pain to eat all those chicken and protein shakes. But it also keeps you into a smaller surplus easier, and the protein itself is anabolic. People on the protein overfeeding studies who lose weight all gain muscle. So between studies like this on bulking and the studies I see on protein overfeeding, I really tell guys, unless you're really trying to get the scale weight way up, unless you have a reason to do so, there's not a lot of reason for us to gain weight quickly or to gain body fat. We can eat tons of protein, eat very, very small calorie surpluses, gain weight at a snail's pace, and in many cases end up gaining just as much muscle as you would have gained on a bulk, but you end up leaner. Right? It's better off this way. Again, the argument can be made if you're going to blast a bunch of gear, okay, it makes sense. But for a drug-free lifter, an advanced drug-free lifter, or someone who's very, very conservative on what they do choose to take, you see where we're going? It's not necessary to bulk hard. Keep your protein really high and just aim for a small general increase. Even if it's a pound every 2 months, but you're protein overfeeding, you are probably losing fat at that point. It makes sense. And the data is more and more supporting it when you look at these sort of studies on surplus, showing that any surplus is muscle gain. You look at the studies on the protein overfeeding showing recomposition. Again, unless you are starting from a position of being extremely peeled, extremely ripped, or a complete rank underweight novice who's skinny, we don't need to bulk fast. Right? There's no reason for us to be gaining 2 or 3 pounds a month. It's just body fat. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.